Hi guys, I'm Shmi, hello and welcome back to the channel where you join me here at the Zenvo house. We've had Monterey Car Week 2023 with the global debut of the new Zenvo Aurora. Now I want to talk about some things today that you won't have seen before to do with both Aurora Agil that we have here, the more track focused version of Aurora, still very much a road car, which is absurd to think, plus Aurora Tour that we have over here, which is your more grand touring road focused car, if you will. There are so many changes between these two that we're going to dive into them with the head of design from Zenvo, Christian Brandt, to learn a little bit more about it. But not only that, also for the first time, my TSR-S is here with Aurora. Now, what I want to do, looking at both cars, is show you some of the design language and similarities between the two. For example, this hockey stick line you have there, the three power lines that run across the bodywork, the similarities with even the headlights. And Christian's going to show us a few more of these, having been involved in the original cars from the very beginning, to go really under the skin, a completely new generation, a new chapter. So let's do this. Let's dive more into the different versions of Aurora and see how the TSR-S looks up against the Aurora Agil. Hey Christian, how are you?
Hi Tim, I'm very well, thank you.
Congratulations on what has been an epic week bringing both of these out to the world.
Thank you very much. I'm extremely proud of what we have achieved.
I think rightfully so. It must be kind of a relief in many ways, because
it is.
Obviously I've known a bit from the inside of what you're working on, but here we have them, the two cars.
Yeah.
And what I find really quite interesting is you're also responsible for the TSR-S.
I am, yes. Yes, I basically designed the original car, back in 2009. And now we're here a lot of years later with a completely new offering.
It's a totally big change.
Yes.
I guess I want to kind of run through a little bit of how you evolve from TSR-S to Aurora, but also talk about how you've created these two completely different cars. Because I have to confess, I was in my head, when you had told me previously that you were working on Agil and Tour, I had more the idea of like a GT3 where you have the winged car and you have the Touring. And fundamentally they're basically the same. There's a wing and a couple of suspension changes, but these are totally different machines.
They are, yes.
So when you've had, I mean, maybe if we just come to the TSR-S for a minute. When you've had a car like this, which obviously you've evolved over time, it was always a brutal design. You've always had, I would say, simple in some ways, but very angular, aggressive. Car that means business.
Yes.
You evolved this into the centripetal wing, into an even more extreme front splitter.
Correct.
But with some distinct characteristics. How do you take those from one car when you're starting something completely new?
Well, to be completely honest, this is actually, the Aurora is the result of 4 years work. And in the beginning of those 4 years, we, of course, did a lot of conceptual development. And we actually spent quite a lot of time on seeing what elements from the existing car we would want to bring over to the new car. And also how far we could go with sort of how little could we bring over and still have the Zenvo DNA.
Okay.
And as an example, if we look at the front here, the sort of angry eyebrow line that I think is something that most people recognize as a Zenvo line, that was something we felt we wanted to carry over. But when you come over and look at the new cars, you would notice that the hexagon grille, it's still there, but it's dialed much more back, so it's not as prominent as it used to be. And that was a decision we made, that we didn't have to have it as prominent like this, just even to carry over the DNA. And then if you come around to the side, which is this thing I always talk about, this sort of three free-flowing lines. So this line that comes out from the front and runs in here and stops. And then there's the second line that runs here and into here and dies out. And then this third line that sort of runs over the fender. That together with what we call the hockey line, which is this one at the bottom, we felt that was DNA, and we had to carry that over to the new car.
That feeling of thirds.
Yes. And as you're very correctly saying, of course, that yes, I did the ST1, I did the TS1, I did this one. This is becoming a little bit of an old lady, right? So we felt we had to jump more than one generation, which is what we have tried here. So we have really tried to look into the future and sort of we had other design ideas on the table, but we just felt they were not radical enough.
That's how I've often, when people have asked me about this car out here during Car Week, one of the ways I've said it is it's skipped a generation.
Yes.
This has just become one of the most advanced things here, from powertrain side, from materials, monocoque, from aerodynamics, from everything. And the amount of time I know that everybody who's come to see it spends looking at what you've done with this, it's simply extraordinary. But you had the brief, I think, basically from the beginning of making the two different cars.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
To make one that's, well, I should let you describe the kind of purpose of the two cars.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of the project, being a small company and the kind of investment that you have to do to make something like this, has been thinking modular in a way, which is why let's start with the engine. This is the 6.6 liter V12, 1250 horsepower, hot V, quad turbo. And it's a 90-degree V12, which is very unusual. But by making that engine architecture, we can actually chop off cylinders, down the line. So we can make a V8 and we can make a V6 with exactly the same engine architecture. And it goes without, explaining that of course makes the sort of longevity of that engine project much more sort of, much more efficient than if you just do an engine and then you have to throw it away and do a new one. We can't afford that. By far, the engine program is the longest and the most expensive of the whole project.
But I mean, for me personally, the idea of, at this era, a car with a V12 with these kind of power figures is immensely drawing in, we could say.
It is. I mean, Marle Engineering, who has developed the engine, I mean, they have the fact that they have achieved to pull 1250 horsepower out of this engine is actually an engineering feat. And let's not go into crazy details, but there's a lot to do with emissions and the coming emission standards, and actually achieving those performance numbers with those emission standards. That is not easy. So they have done a really good job. The second big thing of the project is, of course, the monocoque. So we have developed our own bespoke monocoque. It's got carbon fiber front and rear frames. It's got carbon fiber crash structures. And of course, that's also a massive development cost. So of course, with the monocoque, actually similar to when some of the big OEMs are talking about having their platform sharing, we also have platform sharing with the monocoque. And of course, dividing the cost of the monocoque between two cars instead of one is making a much better business case. So, and also the way we have done the monocoque is a way that we can use that for future products that we have in the line, in the lineup, basically.
It's really quite exciting to think of this. I'm just coming round so we can see some of this, because of course carbon fiber gives both strength, saves weight.
Yes.
Very important factors, especially when you're putting a big V12 engine in, a hybrid system as well. You have to be so controlling with the use, with where you spare any weight, right? With where anything goes.
In the whole process of the project, we have been very aware of we have been in dialogue with friends of the house, customers, and we realized that it was our wish, and luckily it was confirmed by the clients. First of all, the thing that the choice of the engine, it was a no-brainer. I mean, all our customers said, give us a V12. We don't want electric, we don't want a V8, we don't want a V6, we want a V12. And that was what we wanted, so that was very beautiful. The other thing we really wanted to do was to create a car that is actually usable and has a proper door that you can get in and out of. So the whole study of the ingress-egress situation is something we spend a lot of time on, to just make sure that it was actually a car that you can use. That was very important for us. I'm 6'4", and I fit in the car, and of course I said to my board, I'm not going to do this if I'm not able to drive it.
Understood completely.
But I think it's a good choice, because people get taller and taller, and there are other cars in this league where you are very challenged when you are tall and you sit inside. But this car, you actually fit even you're my height.
That answers that question for anybody who's wondering. Because I know that when you've got complicated aero bodywork, to manage the opening hinge points and angles to be able to work with that. I've always actually been surprised by how narrow the doors actually open to the bodywork, while still having the ability to slot straight in. But I mean, you talk bodywork, and while we're standing right here with this door up, behind the front wheels, these are two different cars.
They are totally different. They are totally different all the way from the nose and down. There's no similarities in the bodywork at all. The only things that are similar between the cars is the center. So the front hood, the DLO, of course, the monocoque, and the rear sort of what we call the engine hood. That is identical between the two cars. Everything else is different, because this one, the Tour, is about high speed, and you know, low drag and not a lot of downforce, because we just want to have the high speed stability. So even though the sort of general architecture of the painted parts are sort of identical, they are totally different.
Because when you look at the positioning of the headlights,
Yes.
on Tour you have the bodywork that wraps underneath the lights,
Yes.
and then flows with much smaller openings. You
Yes.
don't have the exposed suspension components.
Yep.
And again here as well, channeling the air
Yep.
around the side. You still have the consistent hockey stick line
We do, yeah,
and
we
the
do.
free-flowing lines down the side.
Absolutely.
But then-
So we've spent a lot of time on also, because you know, one of the things from Denmark that I think throughout the world is quite well known is Danish furniture. And there's a particular Danish car designer. His name was Arne Jacobsen. He died many years ago. Who did some really beautiful designs. And he sort of he's a great inspiration for these designs.
Let's come over to the other side just for a minute to talk about what we've just, I guess, discussed, because this is so much more aero-based. This is where you're taking that Danish design, but you're blending it in with aerodynamics, wind tunnel, computer design, trying to work out the best optimum way to do everything.
Exactly. I mean, you know, my when I started my career was in Italy with Alfa Romeo, and I just remember so many discussions between our designer, you know, the designers that the engineers are idiots, and you know, we were sort of in war, or they were in war, because I never understood that sort of fight. I always believe that, you know, if engineering and design goes hand in hand, you know, you get the best products. So what you see here is basically that all the red parts of the car is where we try to apply design and our DNA, and we try to keep that as well, what you perceive as the body of the car, the bodywork of the car, as minimal as possible, similar to a high-speed motorbike. And then all the black parts, all the carbon parts at the bottom, the 3-level front splitter, the sort of the barge board on the side, the way that the whole sort of lower panel flows onto the diffuser, all that is basically 100% aero. I mean, we haven't designed those parts. So this sort of the line that you see here is actually aero. It's to do with how you want to control the wake coming off the front wheel. So up here in this section, you want the air to go that way, and at the bottom, you want it to go more out that way. So, you know, connecting those two directions created this shape.
I absolutely love looking at this. This is the curves and layout of the pieces there, and that all is part of the door as well. When we open the door, that all has to. This all somehow manages to flow out with it.
We can just try to do that and then see.
And not only do you have the aero, but it flows out. It's a beautiful kind of 3D puzzle.
It is.
The way that flows together.
Essentially, this is just, you know, as a, you know, being a designer from Denmark, during sort of your education at university, you are constantly hammered with the concept of form follows function. And this is form follows function in aerodynamics. It might not look simple as people would normally associate with Danish design, but it is exactly the shape you need in that place to guide the air. So that is form follows function or form follows performance. This is creating downforce, it's controlling the wake from the front wheel, and it does exactly what it has to do.
Talk to me about the exposed suspension that we see.
It actually comes from several things. Again, form follows function. You wanna, you know, when you're on a track day, you wanna, you know, have access to these adjustment knobs. So of course that's really easy when sitting like this. So that is form follows function, and also it's actually, again, very much inspired. This car in particular is very much inspired by high-speed motorbikes, by track day cars, more than other supercars. We wanted to try to stretch the idea of a supercar, sort of taking inspiration from other areas. So the exposed suspension is, of course, a result of making the whole center of the car, like shrink wrapping everything around the technology. So you can sort of argue that the whole center of the car is a vertical wing. The wheels are coming off exactly the same way as they do in a Formula One car. But as probably most people know, you are not allowed to drive with unexposed wheel or exposed wheels on the road, right?
Yeah.
So the purpose of the painted parts and the sort of aero parts that is surrounding them is mainly just to in front of the wheel to deflect the wind, and other than that, just to make sure that all the rules and regulations in terms of how you might need to cover the wheels is working, right?
It's not easy with the amount of things. I really enjoy when you stand at the back here, how clearly you can see this teardrop style, how it comes to the point at the back.
Yes.
Obviously exhaust up top, but being able to see straight through the bodywork, which is obviously down to the airflow, and even the way the diffuser blows out around that shape as well.
Yeah. There's some aerodynamic sort of novelties in the design. One thing is that because of the airflow coming all the way down through the car, and the air the ability of the air to stick to the side of the car, you have a large portion of air coming down through here with a lot of speed on it. And this means that not only do you have the airflow on the underside of the diffuser, you also have it on top of the diffuser. And it actually makes the efficiency of the diffuser much higher than if you had just had a conventional rear end. Another thing that because this is we're talking 1,300 kilo car. It's a relatively big car, so of course we had to cut weight wherever we could. One of them is actually the way we did the exhaust. So what you see here, this sort of shape, the tail of the car, so to say, the muffler is actually inside there, right? So in a lot of hypercars, you have that situation that after you've been driving, you would have the wing sort of coming off and sitting there for a while for the heat to be able to disappear. But here we have designed that whole thing. You can even see we have sort of distance in between the sort of painted bodywork and the muffler here. So we have done so much we could to reduce the amount of heat shielding that we need to do, which is complexity and weight, and basically letting this whole section sit out in the airflow around the car, so it's getting cooled.
Yep. So just
and another feature there is if you look at the scoop at the top, that is actually where we have the intercooler for the turbos. You would normally have them down in front of the rear wheels. That is the sort of default position. But with all the CFD we were doing, we found out that that is not necessarily very efficient. You can sort of almost imagine that when you do cornering, you have different flow to each of the intercoolers. By having it in the center, you have a constant airflow. So basically the airflow is coming into the intercooler, which is sitting in this sort of angle. It's blown down on the turbos in the hot V, and then past the catalysts, and then on the inside of the heat shield and coming out around the muffler here. So that's a sort of constant, very, very beautiful sort of linear flow just going down the car all the time like that. And of course, with the airflow coming around the tail, it's picking up that air, So it's very much sort of trying to make all those things sort of a natural flow through the car.
It's scientifically beautiful, but also beautiful to look at. The way, for me, this is a big thing I really, really quite like. The way that you integrated the intake snorkel on the roof with the parts that you have inside the cabin. It's almost, it's part of the monocoque, right? It's part of the
It
cage.
is, and of course, if you're a little bit sort of into engineering, you would also understand that is a very strong construction, also in terms of rigidity and torsional stiffness and stuff like that. So not only does it provide space for the air to come into the intercooler, it is also part of the rigidity of the monocoque itself.
And then I guess we move to the interior.
Yeah, let's do that.
So we've got seats that are directly part of the tub.
Yep.
Adjustable pedal box, adjustable steering column.
Yes. The seats is something I've walked around with that idea for years. There are other offerings in this category where you have a fixed seat, but in some of those cars you still have a seat. It's as if they made the monocoque, then they put a seat inside and they bolt it into position. Everybody that has tried to take a car seat out of a car know how much a seat weighs. So in this way, we basically just molded the seat into the monocoque. So the monocoque is the seat, and the seat is just the cushion. So it's the cushion, which is of course sitting on a carbon shell, but this seat weighs 3 kilos or something like that. And a normal car seat maybe weighs 40, 50, 60 kilos, depending on how many electric motors is inside.
And it's finished in such a simple way, but this is that Danish design, isn't it? Yeah,
I mean, I think we are trying to do the opposite of what a lot of other companies are doing. So instead of doing more is more, we're doing less is more. So we just have one sheet of fabric here, just a thin sort of strip of Alcantara on the edges, and that's it's simple and it works, and it makes the interior, I think, very calm and very sort of it's sporty without being sort of all over the place.
And I have to ask, whose idea were the displays?
I will not. You should. It was actually my idea.
Okay. It's a genius idea. For those that aren't familiar, at the press of a button, the traditional display literally rotates to reveal the digital screens, which is where you have your infotainment, and it's the same on the other side as well. And this is such a innovative approach to, I would say, a problem, in that many cars with digital screens now, they're aging so quickly.
Yes.
And going the other way and integrating purely an analog display also doesn't give you the functionality that you actually want. Because we all like driving with CarPlay or Android Auto. That's part of life nowadays.
It is. You want it there. You want you want your phone to be connected to the car, but you don't necessarily want to see it all the time. And the vision we had for this interior, the vision for the whole car, basically the vision for the whole company, is we are creating cars that gives you a smile on your face when you drive, right? And our idea here about without having all the screens was basically doing the opposite of some of our competitors or some of the big OEMs, where we have massive screens and you have so much information in the car when you're driving. This car, the purpose is, and we also know that this is not a daily driver, right? So our clients would take this car and would go out, sit inside and drive for half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, and as a break from a busy business life, right? And we had that vision, and actually just today, I've just like an hour ago been speaking to a customer who ordered the car, who said, I sometimes take my cars out for a drive, and my wife is asking me, why do you do that? And it's a break for me. It's a break from a busy life. So the vision we had, he completely bought into that, and it was actually referring to his personal experience, what we have done, right? This is why we have the analog instruments. It's taking inspiration from high quality wristwatches. If you look at a detail like the gear selector that you have at the bottom of the rev counter, that is working exactly the same way as your date works on your watch. So there's another disc behind the front disc that turns mechanically when you change your gears.
It's not a digital screen, it's a mechanical disc that
It's
rotates.
a mechanical disc that rotates when you change the gears, right?
That's amazing. I didn't actually know that. That's incredible. What I also like is, and I think it's best if I come and show it almost from this side, is how you can kind of see through the dash. It's almost like a boomerang structural support.
Yeah, like a wing that runs across the monocoque, and what is in front there is actually the loudspeakers. So I mean, again, trying to think a little bit out of the box. If you're in your home and you have your sofa, who would put their loudspeakers next to the sofa like this? You would never do that. You would put them in front of you, right?
Yep.
So now that we have the architecture of the interior like that, with this very sort of long front window and the very long sort of relatively narrow, we just felt that was interesting to say, okay, we have the dashboard that contains everything you need to touch, and then of course you want the sound coming from the front and not from the sides. So that's you could call it a sound bar, and also we actually have a relatively good volume there, so we can actually have a pretty big loudspeaker with a good quality instead of having lousy loudspeakers in the doors.
That's cool. So it can actually be enjoyed, because that's a big part of it. I know we haven't really touched on it, but when the whole project really began, a big part of this was to create the ultimate car to drive.
Yes.
Right? Not a top speed number or a lap time, but the ultimate driver's car.
Exactly.
And that's where I think we go back a little bit to that reality, that you want music, you want infotainment, you want to have the creature comforts that we've come to expect from our daily drivers. But in a car that will be a little bit more extreme, a little bit more experience based.
Yeah. But I think it's building on what you have already experienced with the TSR-S. It's a very fast car, but it's still comfortable. You're driving it around town. It's not very harsh. I mean, we're thinking about refined suspension and all that sort of stuff, because you want to be able to take the car out on a long drive and not feel a pain in your body when you stop driving. And touching on the numbers, this car has an aerodynamic performance of 880 kilos at 250 kph.
Wow.
That is a number. It's
155 miles an hour.
Yes.
880 kilos.
Yes, which is around 100 kilos more than some of the other high downforce cars that you can buy for road driving.
And most people would quote downforce at their VMAX figure as well.
Exactly.
So for direct comparison.
But you don't really know what the downforce is doing for you at 250 kph, because you're going straight. And of course you will feel that the car is planted, but you can't really tell if that's, an electric car would also feel very planted at 250 because it's very heavy. So you don't understand what the downforce is doing for you. So our focus on the downforce is not that number. That's a trump card. Our focus is to make downforce and aerodynamic performance that works at slower speeds, so that you know, our customers, they're not race drivers. So, you know, they don't know how to take the car up to 90% of the limit and only have a little bit left until you go off the track. So we have done downforce in a way that it's mapped out in a way that it gives you confidence in the downforce. If you were to take these two cars out on a track where you have a lot more downforce on this car than you have on that one, you would feel a difference in your lap times.
Yeah.
And this is made to build up your confidence. We don't want any aerodynamics that, you know, you come up to a corner, you lift off, and the car gets all wobbly because you lose downforce. So we're working with very stable downforce that works at low speeds so that the clients can actually enjoy the downforce.
Now, a quick touch on specifications.
Yeah.
Because you've presented the cars here in colours which feel, you know, reminiscent of the Auroras, the Northern
Yes.
Lights,
Yes.
the idea behind them.
Yeah.
But I know also from playing with the configurator that there are going to be so many different things that are
Yeah.
possible with these.
Yeah.
In terms of bespoke detailing, as we went through, obviously we talked extensively when doing the spec of the TSR-S.
Yes.
Obviously we went through lots and lots of different options and
Yeah.
things with that.
Yeah.
To play with the lower sides of the car, the pinstripe elements, the exposed carbon,
Yes.
paint, iridescent paints, faded paints.
Sure.
That's got to be a big fun part of the process to,
It's
to dream up what they're going to look like.
It's great. I mean, we spent some time on doing some pre-specs, you know, before we came over here. I think what we realize is a lot of our clients, they might not have a preference when you sit down with them and say, I want a blue car with yellow stripes, you know. But if you show them some ideas, that is sort of the first sort of building blocks, and then they would sort of take that and sort of develop it. But we have tried to do a lot of, you know, we've done subtle stuff, we've done crazy stuff. We could do, you know, tartan fabric on the seats. We can do the fading colors, as you see. Funnily enough, because the car is made in this sort of way where you have that sort of front section, and then it's reduced into this sort of slim section and then growing again at the back. If you do sort of a color change, like a fade from one color here to one color there, and it sort of blends out in the middle, it somehow looks cool. I didn't like it when I heard about it, but I kind of enjoy it. And of course, what I personally, as a designer, always like to work with contrasts. And this is also why we have painted the cars in a color and not just made a tinted carbon. Of course, all the body panels are carbon fiber, hence the very low weight.
And I'm presuming it would be possible to have an exposed carbon car.
Absolutely. The Agil in full carbon looks like a weapon. It looks like something out of an alien movie. Seriously, it's really, really a scary creature. So of course we have presented the cars like this because this is the clear vision about the contrasts, the play with the Aurora colors, etc., etc. But I mean, there's so many options of every single part of the car. All the interior aluminum parts can be, you know, anodized. They can be with precious metals. They can be, you know, basically your imagination is the limit.
We should have a quick look at the interior of this.
Let's do it.
Just after we've had a look at the interior of Agil.
Yeah.
To have a look at this, because this is a very different take, right?
It is. I mean, in here we have really sort of tried to take that tradition or the concept of the sort of mid-century Danish design classics that I think a lot of people know and appreciate. We have this super nice, like natural sort of cognac leather, and as you can see, again, we don't have a single stitch on the seat. It's just like one sheet of leather, and I think it's a completely different way of approaching that sort of interior that a lot of our competitors have. We have it on the steering wheel as well. It's nice leather. We have the polished aluminum details, also the dashboard all in leather. And you know, it's a very classical setup, but I feel that it suits the exterior color really well, and it just goes to show. I mean, we wanted to differentiate these two interiors, and I think it also proves that. Well, it's interesting, I think, how much color and materials can change the perception of an interior, because they are identical.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think all that's left for me to say is congratulations on the reveal.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's been incredibly exciting to be here with the TSR-S while Aurora has been revealed to the world, and see the excitement from customers everywhere. So well done to the entire team, and thank you for your time to show us around in detail.
Thank you, Tim. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Heading back over to the TSR-S, and it's fascinating to see this evolution. Of course, for any small manufacturer to have to begin somewhere, right? With the ST1 back at the time, the TS1, TSR, TSR-S and also the TSR GT that's on the scene now, the version of this effectively with a fixed spoiler as opposed to the centripetal spoiler that moves the big wing at the back of the car. It's amazing that that design language has carried through. It's a simple concept, but obviously with a massive generational shift from this car to the new car, but still retaining the angry eyebrows, the power lines, the hockey stick curve down the side is a big part of it. And it makes it feel like such a family of the different cars. And having this out here this week, I told you when we originally dropped it off at Heathrow to fly it out that this was all part of the, the big event, to be here with the Auroras, with my car. This only happens once. The new model only gets revealed once. Has been so exciting. It's really hard to properly put that into words. And to even explain this car to people, this generation, there are a couple of these still in build, of course, customers soon to take delivery of the remaining cars, 10 in total. And to be able to show people who don't necessarily know what Zenvo is about and has been about, being established for the amount of time they have and the cars that they're producing, I don't know, it's hard to put into words, but I'm really grateful and thankful to everybody who's been so welcoming with the car at different events out here during Car Week, and of course to the Zenvo team for, building this, which has given me so many smiles. I think before the sun sets, I'm going to take it out for one last drive here at Monterey Car Week before it's time to pack it up for there. So a big thanks to Christian for his time to show us around Auroras, and I hope you've enjoyed this more in-depth look at the cars, understanding more of the design, the philosophy, the ethos and everything behind them. It's going to be exciting in the next couple of years when the cars make it through to production and are delivered to customers. 100 in total, 50 of each. This is going to be a big one. Just watch. The ultimate driver's car. I can't wait to get behind the wheel. That's it for now though. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I appreciate your support an awful lot, and I'll see you again very soon. Cheers!